For nearly a century, the mention of Bali has evoked thoughts of a tropical paradise. Volcanic mountains form the lush island topography. Repeated eruptions laid down layer after layer of fertile soil. Near the equator, Bali is part of the Indonesian nation made up of some 17,000 islands. Deep gorges divide the land into long, sloping ridges. Rivers flow from the mountains to the tropical sea. Much of the ritual life of Bali revolves around ceremonies associated with water. Rice, the staple of the diet, is also an important part of rituals. Every morning, small offerings are presented to the unseen spirits. Rice, in many forms, is used in a multitude of offerings. Bali is situated along trade routes connecting the Spice Islands, China, and India. These ancient routes brought not only goods, they also spread ideas, such as Hinduism, which has had profound effect on Bali and its neighboring island, Java. Bali's relationship with Java was marked by periods of both engagement and hostility. These neighboring islands share a literary culture. Texts include Javanese adaptations of the Hindu epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, as well as tales of Javanese princes and kings. Rulers in Java and Bali modeled themselves on the heroes of these stories. Most Balinese today practice a form of Hinduism, which combines worship of local deities associated with nature, ancestor deities, and Hindu gods from India. In Balinese daily life, art, ritual, and performance overlap and intermingle. Temples in Bali have been described as open-air theaters. They are largely abandoned, except for days of ritual importance. An individual's work for a temple involves many acts that make a deity's visit more hospitable. This includes the decoration of the temple grounds and the preparation and presentation of offerings, as well as the creation of sacred works of art. A mask, when properly carved and sanctified by a priest, becomes a receptacle for a deity. When worn during a ritual dance, it becomes a protected guardian and powerful sacred force. A statue may temporarily house the divine. It is through ritual acts, invitations to the gods, ornamentation of temples, presentations of offerings, and incantations that vessels become sacred objects. The Balinese commemorate major events in the life cycle of an individual. The most spectacular rituals are for a person's death. It is believed that after the proper rites, the soul of the deceased is released from earthly bonds and becomes an ancestral spirit who may be reincarnated back into the family in a future generation. The act of cremation helps release the spirit from this world, so it may journey to the next world. Members of the court have a responsibility to perform a myriad of sacred rituals, and their public appearances are laden with meaning. A gilded palanquin, used to carry members of the royal family in ceremonies, calls to mind those used to carry images of the gods. The similarity was intentional, as the royals sought to confirm their authority through associations with the divine. Palace architecture often mimicked temple architecture, distinguished by ornate gateways, separating various courtyards and decorated with sacred symbols. The courts supported Balinese literary and performing arts. For example, each palace had at least one gamelan orchestra, whose instruments were ornately carved and often decorated with gold leaf. In the mid-19th century, the Netherlands sought to consolidate their empire in Indonesia by gaining control of Bali. It took the Dutch numerous campaigns over several decades to take control of the island, which ended with members of the southern royal courts willfully marching into the gunfire of the Dutch troops in a mass action called puputan, meaning ending or finishing. The final puputan in 1908 marked the end of indigenous rule until independence following the Second World War. After the final puputan, the Dutch government moved quickly to recreate the image of Bali in the West as a tropical Eden. Early visitors romanticized the island, despite the difficult life led by most Balinese. Some Western travelers stayed and wrote books about the island and its culture. These visitors collected Balinese art and documented what they saw there. How did their activities influence the West's perception of the island? What impact did they have on art production in Bali? Until the 20th century, most art objects in Bali had a ritual function. With the development of tourism, some objects and performances began to be detached from rituals, evolving in new and fascinating directions. Rather than replacing traditional Balinese arts and culture, this new tourist market coexists with ritual-based Balinese cultural production. Bali continues to change with the pressures of globalization and modern popular culture, but it was never a static entity to begin with. Balinese today have taught and learned from generations of artists from other countries, and Balinese art and performance continues to have an impact on international artists of all kinds.
Stop.